There's been shit going down in Belarus recently, my friends. Women in white become faces of Belarus protests as thousands are arrested after disputed election. So, thousands of mainly female peaceful protesters clutching white flowers and balloons lined the streets of Belarus's capital, Minsk, on Thursday on the fifth day of demonstrations following the contested re-election of longtime President Alexander Lukashenko. Authorities in Belarus say 6,700 people have been arrested and at least one person has been killed in the violent aftermath of the election, a contest that independent observers have criticized as neither free nor fair. At least one person has, and now it's been confirmed that there's a second person that has also died, so. Yeah, the opposition showed no sign of backing down despite a brutal crackdown by security forces, but it has changed strategy and tactics. Protesters are now making their stand in a more decentralized way amid a crowd of women lining the street holding a white ribbon. A CNN crew witnessed an almost 2-mile-long chain of protesters cheering on one of Minsk's main avenues, with cars passing by and honking to show support for the opposition. Belarus, Poland, Bulgaria, and Hungary are going down at the moment. Yeah, it's not the best right now for many Eastern European countries when it comes to democracy and human rights. Yeah, it is very sad. Yes, Layla, unfortunately your country is part of these countries that have a hard swing to the right. Let's continue. So here we have a picture of the women. Women wearing white march in Minsk, Belarus on Wednesday in protest against police violence during recent rallies against the results of the country's presidential election. Across the country, women are forming so-called solidarity chains. White ribbons, bracelets, and shirts have become symbols of the movement, initially representing the peacefulness of protesters and later morphing to reflect the old Belarusian flag. White with a red stripe, which can be seen hanging from many windows in the city. During an interview with CNN on Wednesday, Maria Kolesnikova, the latest of 3 women who became the faces of the country's opposition still in the country, wore a white suit as she said she believed that the clashes over the disputed elections results signaled decline of Lukashenko's presidency. Quote, "He's already lost. He has to accept that the Belarusian people don't like him and don't like for him to stay the president of Belarus," end quote, Kolesnikova said. Multiple videos show people coming to chant on their balconies in the evening after riot police pushed people out of the central streets during the violent crackdown of recent days. So things are not looking great right now in Belarus, unfortunately. Layla, Hungary is very homophobic and racist sometimes. I'm sad to call this my home country. I'm sorry to hear that, Layla. I'm sorry to hear that. Sniff, so is Finland, to be honest. Yes, Finland can be. I don't know how open it is in Hungary versus Finland, though. Because I think it depends also where in Finland you live. If you live in the capital region, it's not as bad, openly, at least. Sniff, different meta, indeed. So, military and police officers switch sides. As Belarusian security services continue to crack down on protesters, some of the country's military and police officers appear to be turning against Lukashenko and showing support for the opposition. Dope. Video posted on Instagram by a man named Evgeny Novitsky shows his brother, a former Special Forces officer, throwing his uniform into a trash can, saying he's not proud of his job anymore. Damn. Now that's praxis. Quote, "Hi all, I gave an oath to my people and looking at what's happening in Minsk right now, I can't be proud of where I've been serving. And so I can no longer keep this uniform at home," end quote, former officer says. Right move on this person's part. Another video posted by Belarusian TV station Nekta shows a police officer named Ivan Kolos saying he refuses to follow criminal orders. He urged his colleagues to not point guns at peaceful protesters and be with them instead. He said he would take orders from opposition leader Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, not from Lukashenko. Dope. That's awesome. That's what they should be doing. Like, and a small side note on the TV station Nekta. So most of this information that we're getting now in the West about what's happening in Belarus is because of this Belarusian TV station Nekta. They have been the ones who've been basically able to spread this message within Belarus and also outside of Belarus, because there was a big internet lockdown in Belarus when these riots started happening, and also electricity shut down in Belarus. So many sites were locked off for Belarusian people, so they couldn't talk about this issue online. But Nekta was able to use, was it Telegram? Yes, I think Telegram to spread videos and news about this, and it spread to the outside world. So without this, we probably wouldn't know almost anything about it. So good on Nekta for spreading the word. It is one of many social media videos that suggest there are special forces and police officers in Belarus supporting protesters by refusing to follow orders to arrest them. Meanwhile, Belarusian heavy vehicle manufacturer Belarus on Thursday denied reports in local media of a walkout by workers amid nationwide protests over disputed presidential election results, Russian state news agency TASS reported. TASS cited the company's press service as saying the management of the enterprise had met with the workers to discuss events taking place in the country, but added, quote, "Production continues, nothing has stopped," end quote. It's sus, but we'll see. Belarusian outlet tut.by, I'm not sure how I'm supposed to pronounce that, posted video of workers outside the plant shouting "Leave," a chant evidently directly at Lukashenko, and images of workers outside the plant in Zodzina, about 40 miles northeast of Minsk. While Belarusian state media have downplayed protests, other domestic outlets and Telegram channels have reported a number of walkouts and strikes in the country. The Belarusian Ministry of Education denied reports of protests by teachers, saying, quote, "At present, the education system is busy with addressing priority tasks that have nothing to do with the electoral process," end quote. The Russian state news agency RIA Novosti reported. The statement from the ministry dismissed open letters from educators in support of the protests, saying the identity of the signatories, quote, "is not known for certain." So now we get to what is causing all of this protest. So, claims of electoral fraud. Thousands of Belarusians have been taken to the streets since Sunday, when exit polls showed Lukashenko, who has ruled Belarus for 26 years, received 80% of the vote. If you've been president for 26 years, that doesn't sound like a president. Opposition groups claim that election was marred by widespread ballot stuffing and fraud in order to keep Lukashenko in power, while the independent monitoring group Honest People said that according to its data, opposition candidate Svetlana Tikhanovskaya had won in at least 80 polling stations across Belarus. Many are now demanding a recount. Authorities in former Soviet Republic responded by arresting thousands of people in the first night of unrest, periodically shutting down internet access and employing what the European Union called a, quote, disproportionate, end quote, use of force. At least 50 journalists have been detained or injured during street protests, Belarus's press association said in a statement Wednesday. Quote, "We are outraged by the police violence towards peaceful protests and journalists," end quote, United Nations human rights experts said in a statement Thursday. Quote, "The security forces do not seem to seek dialogue with the protesters or allow them to exercise their right to freedom of peaceful assembly," end quote. So yeah, if you get accused of rigging the election so that you can win, and when people protest, you send the army and police after them, you detain thousands of them, kill a few of them, attack journalists, cut down internet access so people can't talk about what's happening, usually that's a sign that you are a fascist and that you did not win the election. Or that you probably wouldn't have won the election had you not rigged it. Good opinion. I was wondering before the election if Lukashenko would allow the support of opposition to show even a little bit in the election. Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna rig the elections, like, don't make it so like blatantly obvious that you rigged the election. Like, like, don't be like, oh, I won by 80%. Like, try to make it like look like it was even, you know? Like, when you make it like that, it's like, come on, man, don't be dumb. It came as the president of Lithuania, Poland, Latvia, and Estonia called for action in a joint message. Their statement called upon Lukashenko to end the use of force against his people, released all detained protesters, and initiate a dialogue with the public. UN High Commissioner of Human Rights Michelle Bachelet, I'm guessing it's French, condemned the violence in a statement Wednesday, arguing, quote, the use of force during protests should always be exceptional and as a measure of last resort, clearly differentiating between any violent individual and peaceful protesters against whom force should not be used, end quote. The European Union and United States are both considering enacting sanctions on Belarus for its response, while autocratic regimes like Russia and China have voiced support for Lukashenko. Uh-oh. Russia can see the, quote, clear attempts of outside meddling in internal affairs, end quote, of Belarus in a bid to, quote, create a rift in society and destabilize the situation, end quote, Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova told reporters at weekly briefing in Moscow on Thursday. She said, quote, unprecedented pressure, end quote, was being exerted, quote, by individual foreign partners on the Belarusian authorities, end quote. Quote, we call on everyone to exercise restraint and prudence. We hope that the situation in the country, Belarus, will normalize and return back to calm soon, she added. Lol, the US, yeah. I have very mixed feelings about sanctions. Like, I understand where they come from. Like, the idea that you basically say, like, well, you're not going to be able to be part of the global economy, so you're going to be fucked unless you change things. But so often we've seen when the US does this to countries, the people that are in power don't step down. They don't step down, and they just hoard all the wealth to themselves. And then the people who are not at fault because they voted for another person get hurt and are starving and in poverty. So I don't think that this is a great option. And then it forces the country that is sanctioned by the US to turn to other countries like Russia or China because they can't do business with anyone else. So they have to turn to other countries that might not be the best options because they're the only options. And then those can create really bad situations. But yeah, I don't know that this sanction will be the right way to fix this. What would be, I'm not really sure. Like, I don't know. But from many countries like Venezuela and Cuba and countries in the Middle East, we've seen what US sanctions do to those countries, and who they hurt the most are, you know, the people. Though they're the ones that get hurt most by sanctions. So I don't know that that's the best solution because it doesn't help the people, and it doesn't get the people or the people in power who are abusing their position of power. It doesn't take them away from that position of power. All right, let's go on. Tikhanovskaya had no choice, quote. Lukashenko has downplayed accusations of violently cracking down on his opponents. He said he still enjoys widespread support and warned Belarusians that they should not be taking part in unsanctioned rallies. But his opponents say otherwise. Two say they have been forced out of Belarus because of threats from the government. Tikhanovskaya, who stood in for her husband as an opposition candidate after he was jailed in the run-up to the vote, fled the country earlier this week. Her campaign told CNN on Sunday that 9 people associated with the campaign had been arrested, and her decision to leave was made in part to free her peers. A representative for Tikhanovskaya, Olga Kovalkova, told Belarusian outlet TUTBY on Tuesday that she, quote, had no choice, end quote, and said that part of the opposition candidate's team was still being, quote, held hostage. Tikhanovskaya and her children are now in neighboring Lithuania, which has offered to mediate the dispute. There have been protests reported in dozens of cities and towns, but the bulk of arrests have occurred in the capital, Minsk, where key ring roads and streets were blocked by demonstrators on Monday evening, and police deployed tear gas and rubber bullets to disperse crowds. Always a great sign. Analysts said that the level of police violence against protesters was unprecedented. They have used water cannons, stun grenades, rubber bullets, tear gas. Alex Kokcharov, a political risk analyst at IHS Markit, who specializes in Belarus, told CNN. Quote, I think the response by the police is to cause some casualties, such as injuries, which would demotivate a lot of people from attending the protests, end quote. Lukashenko enjoys wide support from the country's elites, but what would crack them is, quote, is widespread civic disobedience movements such as long-term labor strikes in state-owned enterprises and transportation networks, Kokcharov added. Kolesnikova, Tikhanovskaya, and the third woman, Veronika Tsepkalo, joined forces to take on Lukashenko in the election after several opposition candidates were also either barred from running or jailed. Lukashenko dismissed them as poor girls in his annual State of the Union address last week and said he would not give the country away. The trio appeared to enjoy significant support. Tikhanovskaya's campaign rallies saw significant turnouts even in small Belarusian towns not known for their protest activity. About 63,000 people attended the largest event in Minsk in July, making it the biggest demonstration in the past decade. There we go. So that's the news on Belarus. And it is a very shit situation to be in for the people there because their country clearly has a authoritarian leader who is unwilling to let go of power and is clearly being an authoritarian by sending police and military to bonk on heads, arresting opposition candidates, barring people from running as opposition candidates, because why would you bar people from running unless you're very afraid that you will lose? And then, you know, using tear gas, rubber bullets, stun grenades, and water hoses, all like terrible human rights abuses against people peacefully protesting is not something that a democratic leader would do. This is the moves of an authoritarian leader, and he definitely needs to step down. The votes need to be recounted, all of them, and the actual winner needs to, you know, take their place. And it's no surprise that the elites, the bourgeois of the country, support Lukashenko. And like it was said, the best way to fight against them is to do mass strikes, you know, stop the production. That will get the people at the top to listen, organize, you know. But yeah, it's a very bad situation. I feel for the people in Belarus, and I hope things turn better. Like I said, the sanctions from the US and UK, I don't know if that will get the result that we want of getting Lukashenko away from power and having a democratically elected leader. I don't know. Maybe. Once again, that's an area that I'm not super well read on. Like, I don't know the history of sanctions and how they have worked. I just know that there are a few countries where the US have done sanctions and it has mostly impacted people who are middle class or working class. But yeah, that's the situation in Belarus at the moment. Unfortunate, but it's good to see that the people are protesting and fighting back to, you know, get their election results to be democratic and fair. Hello there. Thanks a lot for watching this video. If you like it, please hit the like button and subscribe as well. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to drop those in the comments below. And also, I stream every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. You can come over there. We talk about the game industry from a game developer's perspective and also about politics. And I also play some games there as well. Come hang out with us. Okay, bye.